The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
It's DFS Day, everybody. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's Wednesday. Our contest shifted back to Wednesday this week. Hopefully everybody got the memo. I tried to go as hard as I could on that on yesterday's podcast. I talked about it on the Real Big Three with Jonas and Bogman over on the ITL channel. If you guys listen to that, I've been tweeting about it constantly, much I'm sure to all of your pleasures. This is how you lose followers on Twitter, by the way. Losing followers 101 is tweeting about random DFS contests all the time forever. And that's what I've been doing because I wanted to make sure all of you guys knew the contest is Wednesday this week, and I want you guys all to join it. That's the point of all of this thing. So it's today. DFS contest today. The contest rules 100 people in the room. Entry is $3. There are $300 in cash prizes. There are 2 additional prizes worth an additional $40. And here's the breakdown on that before we get into today's show. Top 20 this week win $15 a piece. This is my doing, so if you hate it, you can yell at me. If you love it, you can say, Dan, what a wonderful idea. I'm so glad you came up with it. For me, someone who's not that great at DFS, the odds that I will actually climb into the top 10 on a week-to-week basis are fairly slim. I'm not that good. I'm not going to find my way into the top 10 every single week. It's just not going to happen. There are too many people that are actually good at DFS, or at least half decent at it, that are going to beat me. And so I thought, okay, what makes me want to come back on a week-to-week basis? The chance to win. The chance to win. And maybe you guys all have that feeling already. Maybe it's because I am extremely frugal and kind of a butthead with my money. But when I see the thing, and it's only $3 to play, but when I feel like I got no shot to win, then I'm just pouring money into the piggy bank. It's like that scene in Wayne's World where the owner of Noah's Arcade talks about how the kids just keep feeding quarters into the machine. That's what I feel like I'm doing sometimes. But if the top 20 win, and there were 82 of us in the contest last week, so let's assume we get somewhere near that same number. Top quarter? Top 12% is pretty tough. Top quarter, that's doable. I could luck my way into that. And a chance that I could potentially win this thing, that keeps me coming back. So hopefully it feels the same thing works for you guys where you get into the contest, you got a chance to win, get into that top 20, win $15 instead of 30. I know the prize isn't as big, but it'll pay for your next 5 contests, and it'll happen more often. Odds are it'll happen more often. Number 1 wins a Hoop Ball t-shirt in addition to the $15. Number 2 wins a goodie bag from our pals over at Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company in addition to the $15 as well. They are hawaiianisles.com, H-I Kona Coffee on Twitter, or you can just find them on Amazon by typing in Hawaiian Isles. Easy enough. We'll be talking to Mike Apotria shortly. He'll tell me why I screwed up. I had 2 lineups in Friday's show last week, and they both stunk. And I went with 2 wildly different lineups. I went with and we talked about it with Mike last week, the total cheapo, useless nothing lineups, and then also the fully balanced lineup. It was I had a lineup where it was 3 guys who were worth basement dollars, and 2 of them actually were okay. And then I was able to afford 3 superstars or almost superstars in that lineup. And that one actually, I think, ended up outperforming the balanced lineup because I had too many just sort of smattering guys from across the landscape. That didn't work as well. So Mike is going to break that down for me. He had 2 lineups last week, and they both won. He got into the top 10 in both of them. So he played $6 of lineups, and he won 60, the son of a gun. And that'll be the first thing we do on the podcast. We'll segue into a recap of an 8-game Tuesday, which was a fun one. Some high-scoring games, finally. A lot of competitive basketball games, aside from Philly-Washington. Basically, they were all dog fights for at least 2 to 3 quarters of the game. That was the only one where it was sort of blowout territory by the second quarter. So we had a pretty good look at some new-look teams, some new-look rotations, some bad teams playing a little bit better right now. Overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the Tuesday card. Even though Nerlens Noel smashed his head, I hope he's okay. That was terrifying. and it really messes up one of my team builds. I didn't think that, a guy playing 13 minutes off the bench most nights, he's not usually in a giant injury spot, but sure enough, it struck. It can get anybody. And I got to rethink what I'm going to do with that basketball team because I already have Rob Covington, Kent Bazemore, Jonas Valanciunas out. And it was Jimmy Butler until he came back last night. And then Danny Green missed a game, but that was just a one-game rest day. So, and Rudy Gay, son of a gun. I got that many guys out. So I got Rudy Gay out. I got 4 guys out for extended stretches. I don't know what's going on with Gay. And you just can't, Nerlens Noel in a punt assist build, he had been very good for my team, but you can't hold a guy when he's about to go into the concussion protocol and he might not play for a month. I can't sit on that. He hasn't been doing nearly enough for me to hold him for a month. Love the defensive stats, though. But I'm getting killed, man. Nerlens Noel going down, Rob Covington going down, Kent Bazemore. All my massive defensive guys are going down, and somehow I'm still kind of treading water in that league, so heaven help me. Maybe I can escape this thing and not get destroyed. Maybe some of these guys will come back eventually, and I'll be okay. But you don't care about that. Let's get straight to a guest on today's program, and that, of course, is Mike Apotria. Mike, welcome to the show.
Well, good morning, Dan. I'm sitting here. I'm looking over tonight's slate, and I'm excited. It's a little bit different with our contest today. It's DFS day. It's Wednesday. Last week it was on Friday, but I'm looking forward. We have 20 winners tonight in our contest, Dan. 20 winners. So we boosted it from 10 to 20, so we doubled your chances of winning. You're only taking home 15, but now I'm wrapping my head around this slate, and I'm only seeing 48 people in this room, Dan. I might have to put in 3 tonight, and I don't want to take all these winning spots in there, but we don't fill this up. I'm putting in the lineups.
Yeah, you have every reason to put in those lineups because last week, and I tweeted this, but I can't remember if I said it on the show. I think I said it also. You put in 2 lineups, and both of them, this was an 82-person room, so this wasn't like 30 or 40 people where you didn't have to beat that many. Both of your lineups, very different lineups, ended up in the top 10. So you made $60 last week, you son of a gun.
Yes, I did. And like you said, it helps fund those future contests. But if you've been listening to these podcasts, you know what I want. And I got 6th place and 8th place. Very, very happy with both. But I wanted first or I wanted second. I want the coffee. Or I want another shirt. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm gunning for.
Well, that's, another try this week. Mike mentioned it. There are 40-some-odd, what'd you say, 48 right now people in the contest?
We have 48 out of 100 spots.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't, I usually put in one. I build one lineup to start. Once it gets closer to, 7 p.m. Eastern time, if I see some empty spots in there, I'm going to throw in 1 or 2 more in there.
So, difference this week, obviously, from last week, and I mentioned it during my very excited opening. I got real fired up today. Is that we only had about a day to get this thing going. We got the link yesterday, and I'm not gonna this is not me complaining about anything, but so everybody's got to jump into the room real quick, and hopefully this podcast will serve. You don't have until Friday this week. It's Wednesday. I believe it's going to be Wednesdays going forward. That was always the plan, but something got sort of lost in the shuffle, and so we didn't get the room open until Tuesday. But it's picking up quick. We opened up the room yesterday at about 2, 3 in the afternoon, something like that, and every week we've been hitting the 50-person mark. That's what I've been tracking, Mike, just to kind of get an idea of where it's going to be. And I think we're pretty close to where we hit 50 last week. I think it was around 9 a.m. Pacific time, and it seems like we're going to hit it by about 9:40 or so Pacific time this week, which is sweet because, again, 30 fewer hours to actually get the people into the room. So I don't know what the number's going to be. One thing that I did want to mention, and maybe this isn't great from a marketing standpoint, but from an advice to other humans standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. This contest pays $300 in cash regardless of how many people are in the room. So your best chance to win money is actually when the room isn't filling up all the way. I know that it's like, well, I want to get in a 100-person contest. Actually, your best odds for me was when I actually won my $30 was when there were like 60 people, right when we first jumped from 50 to 100 spots in the room and we had a 60-person turnout. I only had to beat 50 other people to win $30, and I did it, and that was sweet. And so if you're looking for your best odds, this is pretty great, Mike, right? Like $300 being given away, that's more than the buy-in in the room. That's like going to Vegas and getting better than 50-50 odds on a bet, which doesn't exist in the real world.
And that's exactly it. In the business, we call it overlay too. And that's exactly what it is. And, sharks, we sit here and we look at those contests with 40, 50,000 people. And when it's getting down to that crunch time where the lineups are about to get entered and lock, and you notice, 10,000 open spots, and you start throwing them in there because you want that overlay, just like you said. But the beautiful thing about our contest, it's private. A lot of people don't know about it unless they see our links or anything else. So it's not necessarily like you're going through the DraftKings lobby and you're not going to find it. So it's that, and like you said, it's getting in these contests early because you're going to want that overlay if it's there. And one thing else I'm noticing, and I could be wrong, but I believe DraftKings isn't taking a rake for this. So normal contests, they take their little rake, they get their share, but in our contest, they're nice enough because we work with them that I believe it's a rake-free contest. So it's 20 spots paying out 15. If you do the math, if 100 people were to enter at $3 an entry, that's 300. So this is a rake-free contest. So there's not many contests that are like this too. So take advantage of it.
Yeah, DraftKings, they're I mean, just like to go behind the curtain a little bit on this. If you're wondering why such a thing exists, this is DraftKings saying, "Hey, look, Hoopball, we'll give you guys a contest where we'll cover whatever that gap is, so long as it's generating new DraftKings users, right? This is like marketing 101. This is their advertising, but it's sweet because those of us that are playing here and only playing in games where, Mike, I'm going to try to use the lingo properly, where there's an overlay, it actually works out great for the players as well. So it's kind of a win-win situation. Yes, DraftKings is getting some new users, but if you're playing our contest, you're playing a contest where you basically can't, you can lose. Yes, obviously you can be outside the top 20, but your odds of winning are better than any other contest out there. So it's win for everybody.
100%. And one thing that you always hear me say at the end of all of our podcasts is tell your friends, tell whoever you want, because I'm not 100% sure on how DraftKings does it, but they used to offer a promotion where if you refer a friend to DraftKings and they sign up and make a deposit, you both get, whether it's a contest entry or 10 or 25 free DraftKings dollars to mess around with. So there's ways you can jump in these contests without even having to pay for it if you just get a couple of your friends to join, and then you both are in here at the same time for free.
Digging it. So get on into the contest. It's very easy to find. We've been tweeting the link out since the room opened yesterday, and the tweet goes out basically once every hour from either me or Mike or Hoopball Tweets or Hoopball Fantasy. You can find the two of us on Twitter at Dan Besbris and at Mike Apotria. Okay, last week, Mike, I decided to try a few things because, as you know, on our last podcast, we talked about some kind of gimmicky lineups that I had mentioned or got into the top 10 of our previous contest, such as one where somebody went with some wildly cheap players, just like crazy affordable, the 3,000 to 3,500 window guys, and that allowed them to afford 3 superstars. And I built a lineup like that actually got 31st place and was, because it was sort of a lower scoring week, I was only 22 points away from placing with this wacky, super cheap, super expensive lineup. I also built a really balanced lineup that was about 55 points away from placing in the top 10. That one was 60th out of 82. So I want you to tell me what I did wrong or right in each of them. Let's start with the one that did extra poorly. This was my balanced lineup. Terry Rozier, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Justice Winslow, TJ Warren, DeAndre Ayton, Josh Hart, Andrew Wiggins, and Gordon Hayward. And kind of in looking at it, just in terms of who was successful and who wasn't, DeAndre Ayton turned out to be a very poor choice. He ended up with 14.75 DraftKings points against the Clippers frontcourt in a game that basically had the highest total on the board. Why did this fail for me? I tried to do everything that I thought would work. Do the Clippers defend big men particularly well and I didn't notice that, or was it just an off night for him and I got unlucky? What did I miss?
So you're absolutely correct with the spot. Targeting big men against the Clippers is the thing. We know that if they do start Boban, Boban's Boban. He's a monster in his own right. But defensively, we've seen centers take advantage of him, and if it's not there, they go with Gortat. So there's ways to take advantage of it. It seems like you just got caught up in a bad situation of yourself, which is, Rashawn Holmes was outplaying DeAndre Ayton,
Typical.
up by a lot. And, on the nights where we know Ayton's secured with 34 minutes and he's taking double-digit shots, you're going to take him on all those nights. But this is where we see some of the players, their prices are kind of baked in there with the risk. So if we knew Ayton was playing, 35 minutes a night, he'd be a player that's 9,000 every night. But he's 78 and 7,500 usually for a reason. Because on any given night, we can see Rashawn Holmes is stealing extra 10 minutes away from him. And I noticed on your other lineup, and this is perfect correlation, this is, in your other lineup, you played Rashawn Holmes, and he got, I believe, 30 or 33 DraftKings points. So, and that's the benefit of making two lineups, where if you almost had the same exact lineup, but you wanted to switch two players, if Ayton had the good game, maybe this lineup would have done better. And if Rashawn Holmes had the better game like he did, and you still had all the other pieces, then that would have been a better lineup. But nothing really stands directly out to me, especially in your worst one. It looks like you just, like you said, you played it safe. We had Terry Rozier out with playing with Kyrie Irving out. The Caldwell Pope news, he was a guy that started picking up steam. He still has. He's been priced up a little bit on DraftKings. Winslow, he's always a solid play. The one thing I can maybe I can question is the DeAndre Ayton and the TJ Warren plays, just because playing them both together. I don't remember if Booker was out this night.
He was not. He was in.
He was in, yeah. So now you're basically, that's a lot of usage. You already know Booker's taking 20 plus shots almost every night. He's going to be the guy that's going to be jacking the ball. Whether he makes them all or misses them all is a different thing. But he's going to be taking those shots regardless. So I usually, if I'm avoiding Booker, I only look to play one of Ayton or one of Warren if Booker's in. But tonight's a night where we don't have that situation. Booker's questionable; he might not play, and you can get away with playing maybe an Ayton and a Warren on a slate like tonight if you wanted to, because Booker's not taking the 20 shots.
Oddly enough, which performed much more admirably, I had Devin Booker, and he wasn't very good in this game either. I also had Rashawn Holmes in that lineup, and he was outstanding in that basketball game. It was, okay, so this one, it's pretty clear what went right and what went wrong. My other lineup was Russell Westbrook, Seth Curry, Gordon Hayward, Rashawn Holmes, Karl Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, Chandler Hutchinson, and DJ Augustine. This was the one where I went high-low, basically, with my roster. And a lot of it actually worked out really well. Rashawn Holmes was super cheap, and he had 35 DraftKings points. Gordon Hayward, who I had in both with Kyrie and Marcus Morris out in that game, he was good in both lineups. Karl Anthony Towns was just sort of an easy pick. Obviously, Russell Westbrook, pretty easy pick as well. And honestly, I was one of my cheap guys away, or even a good Devin Booker game away from placing in this league. So I don't feel that crazy about it. I think I know what you're going to tell me. You just needed one of Seth Curry or Chandler Hutchinson to actually pan out, and neither one of them did.
Yes.
Yeah, that was straightforward.
Pretty much, yeah. Hutchinson got the minutes too. He played 26 minutes, but he's a guy that we knew was going to have like a low usage with playing in the starting lineup with Levine, with Dunn, with Marketing, and Carter. So it's going to be tough for him to get his shots. And there's going to be days where he gets, a few extra rebounds or a few extra steals and blocks, and he's going to crush value on those days. But those are guys I generally I try to avoid on the larger slates. I don't think we need to go that. If I'm going to go that low, I'm going to go with somebody who, even if he's playing 18 minutes off the bench, is going to take at least 8 to 10 shots.
Okay. So, that was my hope with Seth Curry on the other side of that, because he's been playing 18 to 22 minutes for the Blazers over the last couple of weeks, and he's been, I don't want to say reliable, but he has been getting, 7 to 10 points, 2 or 3 assists, usually a steal, a couple of 3-pointers. I happened to catch him on a game where he went 1 out of 7 shooting in his time off the bench. And I feel a little bit less, I feel more unlucky on that one than I did on the Chandler Hutchinson one, because like you said, with Hutchinson, the hope there was that he would just sort of stumble into like 6 rebounds and 7 or 8 like putback points type of stuff. And the Bulls did score 116, so there was some opportunity there, but his was always going to be way down the pecking order. With Seth Curry, when he's on the floor, he's going to be usually the second option in that second unit for Portland, and he just missed a bunch of shots. So could that one maybe have been a little bit like, do I get some points for Seth Curry? Because that's not the worst pick in the world.
No, you're absolutely right. It's not. And the only thing I don't like about the Seth Curry play is that you played Westbrook with it. So it doesn't necessarily correlate too well. You want all 4 quarters of Westbrook when you're playing him. So if you're playing Westbrook, you're expecting this game to stay close like it did. It was a 111 to 109 game. Seth Curry is going to see a few extra minutes if the game gets out of hand and they're not playing in the fourth. They'll probably pull Lillard, pull McCollum, and all of a sudden he's finishing the whole fourth quarter at the one, playing the 1 or the 2. So, correlation-wise, it doesn't necessarily go because, you want to try to get all 4 quarters and the most amount of minutes that you could from all of your plays. But even this on the Westbrook, I had a few lineups where I even played Hutchinson because this is the cheapest price tag we were going to potentially see him at. We know he got inserted into the starting lineup. Who knows? Maybe we catch a little lightning in the bottle. But Westbrook let me down in a few of my lineups as well. 53 seems like it's a very good number. It's not. We paid $11,300 for him. We were really looking for at least 60.
Yeah. And
so that kind of hurts us right there. When you look at Gordon Hayward, he put up 8 points less than him at almost a third the price. So it's just even Towns put up more than him, and he was 2,000 less. So you got to look at the slates as a whole. And just because of like tonight, it's going to be tough to avoid Harden and Westbrook. But if one or both those guys has a 53-point game or one of these Westbrook games that we see, avoiding them boosts you ahead of a lot of people.
Yeah. All right, tell me about your winning lineups now. I got to know what the great Mike Apotria did to get over the hump, because your lineups were actually not super similar. And looking at them, I think you had Gordon Hayward in both, and you had Danilo Gallinari in both, and Slow-Mo in both. And I feel like the other 5 guys might have actually been different in each of them. No, you had Thomas Bryant in both of them, and he was actually kind of quiet on this one, and you placed 6th and 8th anyway. Triple-double for Slow-Mo. Was that basically what won you both of those leagues, having him go giant like that?
Oh, that has definitely helped. It won me a lot of money that night, I can tell you that much, because I told you, I do a lot of entries. And if I'm really feeling the night, usually nights I research heavily, I write an article, or like tonight I podcast. I try to throw out a ton of lineups, and these are 2 of maybe 10 to 20 I might have played that night. And if I believe I did write an article this morning, and 3 people I was very high on that I wrote up on all of them were Gordon Hayward, Danilo Gallinari, and Kyle Anderson. So I'm surprised. I expected maybe 1 or 2 more people might read the article and they'd be a little higher on these guys, but kudos to you guys for letting me take this down, I guess.
Yeah, you son of a gun. Okay, so what else do we learn from your lineups on last week's contest? Is there anything else we can pull away, just lessons from some of the guys you had in there, some of the guys you might have avoided?
Oh, definitely. No, I have one primary thing I definitely wanted to talk about. And if you notice, I played Jeff Teague, and he was only 6.1% owned. Well, this was Jeff Teague's first game back. No Derrick Rose. We still knew that. But a lot of people, knowing the coach, knowing the situation, knowing the players, it's not something that necessarily you need to know DFS to do, but just know basketball in general to know. And, Thibodeau, when Jeff Teague came back earlier in the season, the first game back, he immediately played 36 minutes that night. He had a big game, double-digit assists, double-digit points. He missed, I think, 4 or 5 games in this span. First game back, I was expecting Tibbs to do the same thing, and he did. He started Teague. He played him big minutes, and he went out there and he was low owned at a fair price. I think it was like 6,000 or 5,900, and he put up 23 points, 10 assists, 3 threes, 2 boards, and 45 DraftKings points. So you can really gain an edge on guys coming off of injury or guys that just have a questionable tag next to them. Sometimes people don't even bother to click on a name if they see the Q next to him. And it could have been an illness or anything like that where he's perfectly fine today. Or maybe had a stinger, something like that, where you're not really generally worried about it the following day or 2 days later. And you can take advantage of the situations like that. And like I said, just kind of hedging the plays where, you look at Danilo Gallinari, 7.3% owned. I really like Tobias Harris as well. And whenever I'm looking at the slate and I feel like Tobias Harris is going to, garner a high ownership, and I'm looking at Gallinari staring at me in the face, usually for a few $100s cheaper, if I can get him at the quarter of the ownership, I'm going to take my advantages there. Sometimes you might lose here or there. You might miss out on a guy that goes off for 60, but you can really gain an advantage in a mass field tournament by just having lower ownership guys. And you'll see I have Adams 1.2% owned, Vonleh 3.7, Gallinari 7.3, and Teague is 6.1.
Yeah, Teague went huge also. That was that was one that I think maybe a lot of us overlooked. First game back from a long injury, no Derrick Rose. I don't know why I didn't lean that direction as well. That was one that, looking back, was like, oh, come on. A lot of this stuff where I look back and I'm like, I don't think I ever would have done that anyway. That's one where I look back and I'm like, okay, smack myself in the face. That was one that I overlooked and probably shouldn't have. Okay, what about tonight then? How do we start our prep for this evening? Who's out? And we can start building our lineups from that information.
Well, we do have it's not necessarily just about who's out tonight. We do have a lot of injuries that we have to keep an eye on. Booker is one person that I'm closely keeping an eye on. He's gonna affect this slate. We're gonna need to know if he's playing. That game, it's not until a little bit later tonight, so we're not gonna have the news come time of lock. It starts at 8:30, so you almost want to prepare for the situation in case he's in and in case he's out. And if you don't have that news and you don't feel like you can adjust your lineup with just the one or two spots, this is where it can come in handy making multiple lineups. So maybe you make one where in case he does play. Either way, I'm probably not playing him. 8,600. It's good. It's a good matchup. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes and has a big game, but I would maybe build a lineup with just in case he doesn't play, and then have another spare one, just avoiding those guys completely.
How do you do that? How do you create all these things and then have them ready to go? What's the process there?
So what I'll do is, like I said, it's easier for me because I know I'm entering a bunch of lineups anyway in other tournaments. So when I create a lineup, it saves it into that other tournament. And when I go to click onto a different tournament, I can simply just hit import and then click a lineup, and then it automatically brings that same one into this one. So I already have, come close to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, probably 10 to 15 lineups ready to go. And that's why I always say it's tough for me when I'm those are all entered into those bigger tournaments where I could win a lot of money. But when it comes to this contest and I can only select like one or two of them, it really gets tough because it's like trying to pick my favorite kid. I can't make a decision sometimes. I generally pick the wrong one. But I kind of, I'll start my lineup like tonight. If Booker's out, I'm looking at, Josh Jackson. I'll be looking at a little bit of Oubre if I want to save money. I'll be looking at probably TJ Warren. I might stay away from Ayton. I love center tonight. There's a lot of good center plays I do like, so I don't know if I necessarily need to go there. But I'll be looking at those three guys primarily, and even DeAnthony Melton, if he's going to play 30 minutes running the point guard again. So three of those guys are very, very cheap. Warren's affordable, and they're all going to see a huge uptick in minutes and usage with Booker being out, and a good matchup against Dallas.
What about Indiana with Miles Turner likely being out, and what about Luka Doncic potentially being out? What are your moves there in preparation for those potential injuries?
So with Sabonis, I'm pretty much hitting lock button almost on him. It's not necessarily one of those spots that we talked about a few weeks ago with Bamba, where it's necessarily a free square. It's hard. He's a great point per minute producer. I tweeted at one of my followers last night. I believe he averages 1.36 DraftKings points per minute with Turner off the floor and has a 25.1% usage rate, that's phenomenal. If 1.36, do the math, he plays 35 minutes, he's crushing value every day of the week. It's a good matchup against Boston, who is pretty poor against opposing centers and rebounding. So, I'm pretty sure Turner's listed as doubtful. I know it says questionable, but I'm pretty sure he's considered doubtful. So he's not a guy I'm really preparing for. I'm just gonna, if I'm playing him, I'm just playing him with confidence. He's a guy where even if he comes off the bench, he plays 24 minutes, he can still get to where he is.
Would you think about using Thad Young in this spot? He's been really good with Miles Turner out.
So Thad Young has been very good, and I wish I played him last night, and I did it. The difference being the only reason I would play Thad Young is if I wanted to play him at small forward. I think he's a good play regardless, but the power forward position is loaded this today. And I would rather just pay the $1,400 up for the security of Sabonis, who, if we know he's starting five, and this should be a competitive game. Yesterday we look at the box score and we see that, the game ended pretty close, but, the Cavs were getting blown out early on. I believe you tweeted at me like, oh, now they're coming back or they're hanging on. But the game was getting away from him pretty early. So Sabonis hit the bench pretty quickly for Kyle O'Quinn. And then once the game started coming back in attack, they pulled Sabonis back off the bench. So I have a little bit more faith in him. And again, I said the name Kyle O'Quinn. He's a random dart throw that he wins a lot of people money, and he'll give you a headache every day of the week. Because when you don't play him, he's going to double in 17 minutes.
Would you ever play two guys?
Situation.
Would you ever play two guys on the same team in this type of spot, or is that too risky?
You could, but it really kind of eats into the value a little bit. So, best case scenario, let's just say one of these big men between Thad Young and Sabonis gets 15 rebounds. If one of them is getting 15 rebounds, odds are the other one's probably not going to get 10. He very well could, but we're looking for the best case scenario out of every play. And you'd really need almost like an overtime game, or Oladipo to take 8 shots, Collinson to take 6 shots. You need a lot of the volume to come from them offensively. Or just a bunch of random defensive stats. That could always do it too. You can't really predict blocks and steals.
What about Cleveland? This is a weird one because, and you're going to be like, why the hell are you bringing up Cleveland? It's more of the gambling side of things. They actually just lost to this New Orleans team by 35 points less than a week ago. It feels to me like they're going to come in with a little extra fire and against a team that doesn't play any defense, much like themselves doesn't play any defense. Is there anyone you'd target on the Cavaliers, or is that too risky?
You know what? The Cavs are a little bit worrisome right now. There's, with the Nance injury, he's probably going to be sitting out. It looks like he traveled with the team, but he's going to get further evaluated. It kind of leaves an opening for your boy Tristan Thompson. I do think that they're going to need him. Obviously, going against Anthony Davis, if he stays out of foul trouble and the game stays close, it's going to be hard to imagine him not hitting value at 6,000. But I believe last I checked, it was almost a 13-point spread. I don't know if that's what it still is.
It's big.
You're really risking a lot in that game, and they solely rely on 3-point shooting, and that can pull you out of the game very, very fast, especially against a team that's really pushing the tempo. I'm pretty much avoiding them. If you wanted to take a shot on maybe Burks again, try to catch lightning in the bottle again twice, 2 nights in a row, you can go that way, or maybe Tristan Thompson if you're feeling risky.
All right, let's do a top and bottom thing here, and then we'll wrap up our discussion for the day. Who's your favorite among the superstars available for tonight? Who might actually be a deal at their crazy prices?
Well, there's no chance he's a deal, but James Harden is, he has to be on the top of everyone's list. If you're paying up for a guy, I think it has to be him. His usage has been, over 40% since his Chris Paul injury. He's 12-2, but for a reason. Even on a night where he's not dropping a triple-double, his floor looks like it's 60 DraftKings points. The game he had against a slow-paced team like Memphis, where he put up over 80, just shows that he could do it on any given night, and we should have a competitive, high-scoring game tonight with Milwaukee. So, but, I mean, that's a gimme. Other guys I'm looking at, Russell going against Atlanta. It's a dream matchup. He scorched him earlier in the season. Donovan Mitchell's going to be handling a lot of the point guard duties over there in Utah. He's like a nice little mid-price guy, and vice versa with Raul Neto if you wanted to save some money. I'm looking at that Laker game, Blake Griffin, Lonzo Ball, 2 guys. You got Kuzma coming back at only $7K. And one of my favorite plays of the night are going to be Sabonis, John Collins, 2 power forwards. I'm absolutely looking to get into a lot of my lineups. And then again, we just have to wait and see on that Booker news, because, that opens up all the guys, all the wing minutes over there. And if we see that Doncic and Dennis Smith Jr. out, it brings in Barea, Brunson. So we're going to have, looks like, enough value. To pay up for these James Hardens. I don't think I'll be able to get 2 of them. I might try to get a lineup where I get like a Harden, maybe Embiid. I think I'm going to go back to the well on Embiid. I really liked him in yesterday's matchup. It's the same exact matchup. They just blew him out. He only played 24 minutes and scored 40 DraftKings points. That was Butler's kind of, all right, time to do me time. And he had his one game. Now I'm expecting it just to be in the Embiid show again. And Capella, Jordan. There's so many ways you can go with these 7 to 8K guys, or you can pay up for that one James Harden guy and work your way from there with the value that's going to probably open up.
All right, what about the garbage heap guys? What about the cheapos? Anybody that jumps out as an interesting fella you could dump in and save a few bucks?
If we get the news of Doncic and DSJ, you're looking at Barea, 4,300. He's point guard and shooting guard eligible. And, backup plan, Raul Neto is 4,300 at point guard. He's not a guy I'm expecting to light the world on fire, but the minutes will be there for him. Same thing with Rivers. You got Melton at that 4,300 range at the guard position, if that were to happen. Small forward, you got Kelly Oubre. He's only 3,800 if Booker were to miss. Bembry is going to be getting the start again. He's, I believe, 4,600. You could check over there. You could try on. I don't know exactly how I feel on Brook Lopez going against Houston. I know that the thing is, it's not the same Houston team like Golden State that used to limit centers a long time ago and force them off the court. They need Capella to be on the court as long as possible. So Brook Lopez at 4,900, if we know he's getting 30 minutes in this game, he could really stretch Capella out, and they could take advantage of that. So, there's definitely a few low price guys that we could put in right now, but I think the better value is going to be the guys that we're waiting on.
All right. There you go. And now we got to try to build it. Mike Apotria, can you beat him? For he is the expert of the aforementioned Beat the Expert DFS contest. We got that bad boy running tonight. Mike, a big thank you as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
The mighty Mike Apotria. Love that dude. I want to get him. He's a season-long guy, too. You guys don't realize that. He plays season-long as well, but it's so rare, and this is going to sound condescending to other DFSers, and I don't mean it that way. You guys know me well enough to know that I'm generally, when I talk about stuff, I try to be nice about it. I want to be the nice guy of the fantasy world. It's really rare to get a truly skilled DFS guy who's also very good at talking about it. There's a tendency in the DFS world to be very numbers heavy, and then when folks try to explain it, becomes kind of difficult. And I love that Mike is sort of able to blend the two. He's very good at what he does, and we're very lucky to have him over here at the Hoop. So big thank you again to Mike Apotria, and you can follow him on Twitter at Mike Apotria. And let's talk a little season-long stuff. Get into that Tuesday card. There was something for everyone on Tuesday. I say that like the beginning of a talk show host. Indiana, Cleveland, we were watching to see if the Cavs would make any roster moves, mostly from a starting lineup standpoint, and they didn't. But then Larry Nance hurt his knee and left the ballgame after the first 5 minutes, which opened up extra minutes for Cedi Osman, who ended up actually having a decent ballgame. Alec Burks played well. It was just sort of more stuff for the regulars. My take on this game, though, is that Larry Nance leaving didn't really change the outlook for these guys. The fact that Alec Burks has a really nice ball game, I don't care. His usage was still pretty low. He's not going to shoot 7 out of 9 for most ball games. He rarely gets steals and blocks. He rarely hits 3 3-pointers in a ball game. Jordan Clarkson is the one that's been able to sort of tread water because he's scoring a lot of points, and that's fine if you want to roll with that, but it's basically still Tristan Thompson or bust on this team most nights. They caught an Indiana team without Miles Turner. Their defense suffers dramatically when Miles is not in there, and you could certainly see it in this ball game. Cleveland came roaring back in the second half, and Thompson was great. 6 out of 9 shooting, double-doubled with 5 assists and 2 blocked shots. That's a fine ball game, and he's a very good second-string center on your team right now. So that stays the same. The other stuff for me, not changing that either. I'm not looking at a different outlook. This would be a nice time for them to actually have Kevin Love not too far away, and I wonder if maybe the Larry Nance thing means that they'll try to get Kevin Love out there in the next 3 weeks. We'll see. We'll keep an eye out for updates on that one. Indiana side, nothing really changes there. Nice to see Darren Collison bounce back. 8 points on efficient, 3 for 5 shooting, 2 free throws, 9 assists, 4 steals. Would have liked him to throw in 1 3-pointer just to kind of round things out. Thad Young always goes big when Miles Turner or Domantas Sabonis is out. He was well over the Thad Young barrier with 35 minutes. He's been a top 40 guy for the last month and a half now after a crazy slow start to the year, and that's cool. Washington, Philadelphia, this was a blowout, so I don't want to read too much into it, but Thomas Bryant only played 17.5 minutes in this ballgame. Jan Mahimi got 17 minutes, and then honestly, I don't even know who played center the rest of the time. That's how confused I was. Was it Jeff Green? Might have been. Anyway, they got owned. They got flat out owned in this ballgame, and you can throw it a lot of it away. Bradley Beal was still good. They still managed 115 points, but generally it was the reserves playing the whole fourth quarter. So the starters, besides Beal, were not good. Jeff Green was not good. Satoransky wasn't good. Ariza wasn't good. Thomas Bryant wasn't good. You're still holding Bryant, but be aware that when they go up against these offensive powerhouse centers like a Joel Embiid, Bryant gets exposed for not being that big. That's what it comes down to. He still has a really beautiful fantasy stat set, so I don't think you guys should be punting on that. Not no way, not no how. I also think that with Otto Porter now, it started to get ramped up, and I think he may have bruised his hand in this ball game, and I guess we'll see how that thing shakes out. I'm going to assume he plays through it, And I still think that's going to be a ding on Jeff Green, but we will wait and see. And you're definitely holding Satoransky. This is the bad that goes with the good. He's a low usage guy. He's a low volume guy. He made 3 out of 5 of his shots with a 3-pointer. You just need him to get to that 30-minute plateau. You need another 25-ish% on this ball game. And with another 25%, then you're talking about roughly 9-ish points, 3 rebounds, 5.5, 6 assists, a steal and change, maybe an extra half a 3-pointer. That's basically what he was last year when Wall was out. And because his percentages are often very good, that's a top 70 number that actually crept up towards top 50 last year. Landry Shamet, right? It's not Shamet, contrary to popular belief. 8 3-pointers in that game. If you gambled on him tonight, congratulations. That was a wild decision because it was Furkan Korkmaz, who played J.J. Redick's spot in the starting lineup, and he actually played well too. Probably a popular DFS guy. I don't think J.J. Redick is missing much time. I think this was a game they just gave him off. They figured they could handle the Wizards. With Jimmy Butler coming back after complaining, he got to run a little bit more offense, and Butler was great. Missed his free throws, but he was great. So welcome back to happy Jimmy Butler for a day, if nothing else. Atlanta hung in there with the Toronto Raptors. They looked good in this ball game. John Collins, 21 and 14. He had a steal. That's one defensive stat. And with Kevin Huerter out, it actually might have just been Herter. I was listening to the Atlanta broadcast, and they called him Kevin Herter. Jeremy Lin played 34 minutes in a start. He had 20 points, 4 boards, and 9 assists. He is a delectable streamer if Herter has to miss any more time. And I don't know if he's going to. Left calf strain. I thought it was a back thing before the ball game started, and then they said it was a calf. So if it's a calf, he might actually miss a couple of ball games. And if that's the case, hell yeah, you roll with Jeremy Lin anywhere you can get your hands on him. Taurean Prince apparently is about a week away, but who knows at this point. Kent Bazemore we have no update on, so we'll assume he's still 2 weeks out. I don't know. But it is cool to see Jeremy Lin getting a little chance and showing that all of our stat magnet stuff is very real. Danny Green took the night off for the Toronto Raptors. I don't want to read too much into that. Just a healthy rest day, and they were able to squeeze by Atlanta anyway. Denver, on a back-to-back, traveling east, losing an hour, somehow came from behind and beat the Miami Heat late. Miami was up 6 in that game with about 2 minutes to go, and then Denver went on an 8-0 run, capped off by a Nikola Jokic falling, leaning, tumbling shot that went straight up into the sky and then bloop, right down through the hoop. That was really something else. Gary Harris, the hamstring thing, did appear to be real. He sat this one out, so you got a little bit more Malik Beasley and Monty Morris. You got a little more Torrey Craig in this ballgame, grabbed 16 rebounds. And I honestly don't know if Denver's ever going to be fully healthy this year. But in the meantime, Jokic, Millsap, Jamal Murray, all very safe. And then you've got those fringe guys that sort of rotate on a night-to-night basis. For Miami, this one finally played out the way that we had talked about, which is Hassan Whiteside. He's going to get you a double-double and a bunch of blocks. And he missed a bunch of free throws in this game, which was a buzzkill. But honestly, if he had just made one more, it would have been acceptable. 2 out of 5 seems bad, but it's a lot better than like the 1 out of 6 that he was doing before. It's a small step, but it's also a big step. Josh Richardson, he's generally going to be a guy that's sort of in the black for fantasy owners, although he's obviously been slumping as everybody gets healthy. Justice Winslow, slightly better line, didn't miss a ton of shots, but wasn't great. And then Olynyk, Waiters, Adebayo, Wade, Johnson, also Johnson, Magruder. All of those guys were not very good. And Derek Jones Jr. didn't even play in this ball game. What the crap is that? I tweeted that I think Eric Spoelstra sometimes gets paid based on how many guys he can get into the ball game. But no, Derek Jones Jr., that tweet goes down the toilet. He'd been playing great for them, and he got a DNP. Explain this to me, please. That Dion Waiters needs to play 25 minutes of this game, but Derek Jones Jr., 0. Explain this to me, please. I beg of you, anybody, come up with a reasonable explanation for that. Dion Waiters made 3 3-pointers. Congratulations. He missed 2 clutch free throws that probably could have iced the game and then allowed Denver to go on their little late-game run. Please explain this to me. If there's a magical universe where Dion Waiters starts to play 30 minutes a game, he's a points league god. And I'm starting to wonder if they don't actually want that to happen. Madness. First game without Tom Thibodeau in Minnesota. Andrew Wiggins blows up for 40 points. Was Tom Thibodeau the reason that Andrew Wiggins was awful this year? Is that possible? I can't really believe that to be true. I can't wrap my head around that. There's also the notion here that with Karl-Anthony Towns in foul trouble, Wiggins had to do a little bit more, and there's almost no way that he ends up averaging anywhere near 40 points a ball game. And he's going to be owned in every fantasy league because his name is Andrew Wiggins, and he scores 17 to 20 points a ball game, and people love points and don't care about the fact that his other stats are brutal, painful. Top 150 guy so far this year. But maybe he gets some confidence back. And if that's the case, he could work his way towards the top 100. But he ain't going any higher than that in 9-cat. Josh Okogie played 37 minutes and did nothing with them. Dario Saric and Taj Gibson continued to split the power forward minutes. Jeff Teague got ejected, and Tyus Jones had an okay game in his stead. But it was really Wiggins and Towns in this one. And we'll get an answer to our next question on Friday. Derrick Rose was active for this game, but did not play. The slow return, since they now have Wednesday and Thursday off before a game on Friday, they figured they'd just give him a little bit longer to get right. I still think you see Derrick Rose. And the reason I say that is because beyond Saric, the bench is almost entirely devoid of people who can score. And in the NBA nowadays, you need people who can actually put the ball in the hoop. The rest of their second unit, or third unit if you include Tyus Jones, Gorgui Dieng, Josh Okogie most days, Anthony Tolliver if you want to throw him into the mix, they need that scoring punch. A nice sixth man who can put the ball in the hoop, that's a big deal. So I still think Derrick Rose is going to play 25 to 30 minutes a game. He's going to be, people I think are going to interpret it as him being down because before he got hurt, he was going nuts, but Jeff Teague was also out. So he was the starting point guard, and he was putting up huge numbers in that spot. This is going to be more like the Derrick Rose when Teague was healthy, which was like 17 and 3.5 on good percentages. So it's not going to be mind-blowing stuff, but he's going to be inside the top, I would say 90, maybe a little bit better than that, assuming the explosiveness doesn't go away with this ankle injury. So, no, I'm not dumping Derrick Rose, and I'd love it if we could get some kind of update on Rob Covington, but I'm not expecting anything anytime soon. Saric, by the way, did have 15 and 7 in this game, but again, some of that was because Towns was in foul trouble, so other people got more shots. I don't think he takes the third most shots on the team most nights when this team is healthy. That should be Teague. Sometimes he's going to take fewer shots than Taj Gibson. He just happened to get a few more up in the air, but he is a guy to keep an eye on if somehow this position battle swings toward him. But if it's 24-24, which is effectively what it was in this ballgame, it's not good enough. Nerlens Noel, bad head injury. He ended up being stretchered off the court early in the fourth quarter of Oklahoma City's loss to Minnesota. We wish him the best, as I mentioned. And I assume concussion protocol, assuming everything else is okay, which means he's probably going to miss multiple weeks. And then even when he comes back, he's not going to be the same guy because you always see it with these dudes. It takes him a long time to shake off the cobwebs. There's nobody else on this team that can do what he did in those limited minutes. So if you have an injured slot, probably a drop, unfortunately. Phoenix caught Sacramento on the tail end of a back-to-back, and they pantsed them in the second half. Sacramento had a nice first-half lead. Richaun Holmes, ladies and gentlemen, led a massive second-unit charge along with the likes of Kelly Oubre, and it was amazing. Richaun Holmes, I think, was a plus 14 off the bench. 12 points, 4 boards, 2 steals, 3 blocks, and he did it on a perfect 4 for 4, both from the free throw line and from the field. Remarkable, Richaun Holmes. And then they hung on. They were able to win it. Despite a Sacramento push at the end of the ballgame, Phoenix ended up, they were trailing by 5 with about 4 minutes to go, and then they outscored him down the stretch. De'Aaron Fox was good. Ben McLemore had 20 off the bench in this game. Willie Cauley-Stein, a much-needed better game for him. Sacramento wasn't really that bad outside of Bogdan, but Phoenix was just better. They made a lot of shots, and the second unit started the fun. Kelly Oubre sort of knocked Mikal Bridges off to the side in this ballgame. This is one of those ones where Oubre got hot, and so it was Bridges that suffered, and they did it without Devin Booker, so kudos. in that one. Nice performance from Phoenix to get a victory over the Sacramento Kings. And that one hurts Sacramento because they're hanging on there towards the end of the Western Conference playoff race. Jeremy Lin made his return for the Charlotte Hornets, and it was excellent. It was excellent. It was everything that we could have hoped. Willy Hernan-Gomez seems like the guy who's going to get more minutes at the center position, but I don't feel like any of these guys is really going to be consistent enough on a night-to-night basis. Moving right along, because that's just not that interesting, and frankly, at this point, I'm willing to drop both Hernan-Gomez and Biyombo for somebody else that is more interesting. I'm not 100% certain who that might be. In that last game, New York and Golden State, Mario Hezonja is doing things again. This is a brutal moment here, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. Luke Kornet getting outplayed by Enes Kanter, who might be on the move. The whole thing is just such a mess. I think you could get away with dropping whoever you wanted to here because there's just going to be so much back and forth anyway that it sort of doesn't matter. They got blown out in this game, so the minutes were all out of whack. But Mario Hezonja has played well in 2.5 games in a row now, and so he should be someone that's kind of on your radar because, heaven forbid, something opens up with this Knicks team. You know they're trying to move veterans best they can. Maybe he actually gets to see some playing time. He's a fantasy stat magnet when he's out there. As I said yesterday, he really only needs like 27 minutes to get there on a nightly basis. And at 25, he had a good game and close to being a consistent good game. Are you racing out to grab him? Absolutely not. Luke Kornet, I've dropped in a couple of spots. The 19 minutes just isn't enough. And I know this situation might play itself out where, maybe Kanter gets moved, but I still think they'd want to get Mitchell Robinson in there for half the ball game. And if each of those guys is playing 24 minutes, Robinson is the one that's more interesting. He can do his stuff in less time on the basketball court than it takes Kornet to do it. And he's lost his minutes now to Enes Kanter in the last couple games in a row. So I think I'm moving on in that spot. I'm not going to sit on a guy who, even in a best-case scenario, is probably still only playing about 24 minutes. I'd rather go for the other direction, go for the big-time steals, blocks, rebound, field goal percent guy. And three-pointers are everywhere right now. The wire is just stuffed with guys who knock down threes. Half of San Antonio is on your wire if you just want a guy hitting three-pointers. And Kornet's not a big shot blocker or rebounder, so he's like the world's poorest man's Brook Lopez, and I'm just not down with that. At least, again, given the time restrictions. Big thank you to all of you that checked out the Hoopball in-season premium memberships so far this week. It seems like the crazy low price point has actually been enough to get a few of you over the hump, and if you're thinking about it, I'll repeat it on today's show. $9.99 right now, and if you ask me for a coupon, I'll be happy to give you one. You can drop another $3 off of that bad boy, and you can actually get the in-season premium membership for the rest of this year for $6.99. Crazy. That's $2 per month because you got about 3.5 months left on the NBA season. A little under that now that we're a week and a half into January. So call it $2.33 per month. Absurdly low price to demo all of our live interactive shows for the last 3 months of the year. Absurdly low price to get all of our amazing premium articles on Points League guys, on DFS stuff, on full season stuff, on Dynasty stuff, on trades, on whatever it is that you want. And the accessibility, I believe, of the Hoopball Pros is the real key to this in-season premium stuff. Not only do you get more written content and just more goodies and tools, streaming grid, scheduling grid, all that stuff. My opinion, humbly so, though it may be, is that the fact that you get to interact with the Hoopball Pros, you just get them all the time. There's a nightly show, Monday through Thursday. There's a nightly show. You got a Sunday show with the waiver wire stuff. You got Monday morning. You got the lineup show. We've got our free Friday show. So if any of you guys like that have experienced our free live YouTube show, that's basically what you get with Hoopball Pros every night as part of the in-season premium pass. So check that out. Go to hoop-ball.com, click on the premium tab, choose Go Premium, and get it for crazy cheap for the rest of the year. It's nothing. It's $7. You won't even miss it. You certainly won't miss it when you use our good stuff and win your league. And then if you like it, you can get it for the full season next year because we'll have special deals in the off season that includes the draft guide and all that good stuff. Quickly on tonight, because we are running out of time, believe it or not, on today's podcast. Good to have a guest back on the show. It's hard to lecture to myself for a full hour. It's really nice to be able to ask a few questions. Big Wednesday, 10 games on the docket. Philly, Washington. This is the second half of a home and home. These two teams played last night, and Philly blew them out. I like Washington in this ball game, by the way. It's a double revenge game for the Wizards as well. I think all of the main pieces on both sides will have better games because I think this one's going to be more competitive. Indiana, Boston. Sounds like Miles Turner is doubtful, so you're looking at more Thad Young and Domantas Sabonis. Boston is now mostly healthy again, so they go back to that sort of too many mouths to feed situation. That's also a revenge game, by the way. The Celtics lost to Indiana earlier this year, laying 7 points. That's a tough bet to make, but anyway, we'll be tracking it. Atlanta, Brooklyn. Sounds like Kevin Huerter is playing in this one. We got that breaking news while recording today's podcast. So the Jeremy Lin stream fest that I was so happy about at the beginning of this show, I'm less happy about now. I went from happy to not happy in the span of one podcast. You guys are going to have listened to the beginning and be like, Dan, Huerter's playing, but I didn't know that yet. So you'll have to pardon me on that one, and I'll put Jeremy Lin back on my bench, and I'm back to looking for the next interesting stream guy. Milwaukee, Houston. By the way, that's an Atlanta revenge game, catching 9. I don't really like that one at all. Milwaukee, Houston. This should be a fun one. Milwaukee favored by 1.5. We're keeping an eye on Austin Rivers, obviously, but he seems like a points league guy right now. PJ Tucker got fired up in that last ball game. Don't know if he can continue it, but we will watch and find out. He's going to be tasked with a lot of Giannis tonight, so don't expect too much on the offensive end. Cleveland lost by 35 to New Orleans earlier this week. They're catching 14 on the road. I actually think the Cavs are going to play pretty tough in this ball game, but I've been wrong before. So we shall see. Tristan Thompson, he's been playing well for the Pelicans. Same old stuff. Spurs at Grizzlies, another team that played earlier this week. Spurs blew out the Grizz by 20. Memphis, they've been awful, but maybe revenge on the brain, maybe something to get them fired up in this ball game. We shall see. Would love to see Justin Holiday get more than 12 minutes in this ball game. Why would you trade for a dude and give up second-round pieces and young players if you're not even going to use the guy you get back? My hope is that while he's learning the offense and the defense, they're just sort of easing him in. It's why I'm hanging on to him in a couple of spots for a week or two to see if maybe he does dial into more minutes soon. Phoenix at Dallas. Phoenix with that nice come-from-behind win yesterday. Devin Booker is questionable for this game, and that obviously keeps it in limbo a little bit. I think Mikal Bridges bounces back in this ball game. Rashawn Holmes remains fun. Luka Doncic might miss this one for the Mavs, and, they just use too many guys on a night-to-night basis. Orlando is in Utah. Believe it or not, this is actually a Utah revenge game. They lost to the Magic down in Mexico earlier this season. Orlando's been awful lately, and Jonathan Isaac's been especially awful. My hope is that, as I've said on Twitter, it's darkest before the dawn, and maybe he gets things turned around. I had to drop him in a couple of spots. I understand if you do too. Chicago, Portland. This one, I don't know, man. Bobby Portis, minutes ramping up. That's one thing to keep an eye on. And then Detroit and LA, and nobody truly cares because at that point you're just chasing. That'll about do it for us on today's show, everybody. Thanks so much for listening in, and one big thank you again to Mike Apotria. Come join our DFS contest. Tomorrow, you got me stuck with old Danny Boy on his own, and Friday with Brewski, we'll wrap up the week. This is Fantasy NBA Today, a hoopball presentation, and brought to you by Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company, supplying the hoopball pros with their caffeine and a second-place goodie bag in that DFS contest. So another reason to play. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Enjoy the big one. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.